What if Anakin and Padme adopted a child during the Clone Wars? That's our story for today. Hope you enjoy. And before we get into it, thank you all for 70,000 subscribers. To celebrate, we're going to be giving away first a lightsaber, other stuff in coming days. But to enter, all you have to do is go down to the comment section and comment giveaway, followed by your favorite lightsaber in Star Wars, and you'll be entered. There will be one winner chosen at random in a few days, so stay tuned for that. And let's get into today's story. Our story begins on the planet Akvatina, deep in the Outer Rim, as Anakin Skywalker and an elite unit of clone commandos are on a scouting mission. The Republic recently intercepted a separatist transmission where they claim that Count Dooku and the Trade Federation leaders were secretly meeting in the main village here. Anakin was tasked with taking a special forces squad to find and capture Dooku, but as they searched the village over an hour, nothing was found. Soon enough, one of the commandos said he was getting a reading of something just outside of the village, and Anakin looked around one of the buildings into the neighboring forest. He heard the rapidly increasing sounds of droids, and suddenly, at least a dozen HMP droid gunships flew out of the trees, firing down on the village. The blasts took out a couple commandos, as Anakin yelled out that this is a trap, and he told the clones to prepare for battle. From the trees came waves of super battle droids, firing their wrist rockets at buildings without hesitation. Anakin had his lightsaber out as he was blocking blasts, and he told the commandos to get the people in this village to safety. He will do what he can to handle the droids. So, the clones ran into the village, prioritizing the safety of the citizens here, while Anakin moved from droid to droid, slicing them to spare parts, trying to take down the gunships. Anakin wondered how this ended up being a trap, but that was a problem for later. And suddenly, Anakin found himself surrounded, locking as many bolts as he could before one of them clipped his shoulder. Anakin dove behind a hut as a rocket blast landed where he was just standing, but the blast caught Anakin's leg, and he could barely put any pressure on it. Breathing heavily now, Anakin prepared himself to take on an overwhelming number of droids, when suddenly, reinforcements arrived. But not from the Republic. Instead, this was a squad of Mandalorians from the Death Watch as they landed in the village, firing at the droids, allowing Anakin to safely escape from the village and hobble to the trees. He didn't know if he could trust these Mandalorians. He didn't know why they were here. Everything was just going very wrong. And as Anakin was escaping into the trees, he saw one of the Mandalorians grab a child from a small bunker and fly away, and Anakin managed to crawl into the trees before pulling up his pants leg to see how badly he was injured. His leg was burned and bruised pretty heavily from the explosion, and his shoulder was hurt whenever he moved it. This was not his best performance. He needed Bacta quick. Anakin tried communicating to any of the clones, but all he got back was radio silence. His entire squad was wiped out. He walked them right into a separatist trap. Anakin used his lightsaber to carve a makeshift cane, and he limped further into the trees. He was trying to find his way back to the ship that he and the squad came here on, though Anakin soon found himself lost in the forest. But while walking, Anakin came upon something strange. It was a hidden outpost of sorts, and Anakin would open the large doors to see just one person inside. It was a young boy, roughly 10 years old. The boy was a mess, clearly not from the village, and Anakin held his hands out to indicate that he wasn't any danger. Anakin asked the boy if he speaks basic, and the boy slowly nodded. So Anakin asked where his parents were. The boy looked down and slowly shook his head, as Anakin noticed the boy's clothes had blood on them. So Anakin reached out, grabbing the boy's hand, telling him they should get out of here. It's not safe with the separatist droids seemingly claiming this planet. The boy didn't have any idea who or what the separatists were. He hadn't even known about the war until it reached his village this morning. Anakin helped the boy out of the outpost, and they began walking through the forest together. He kept trying to get the boy to speak, but it wasn't going too well. And as they walked, Anakin had an idea. He pulled out his lightsaber, showing it to the boy, and naturally this worked. As the boy's eyes went wide with excitement, he smiled, asking Anakin if he was a Jedi Knight. Anakin laughed a bit, and said maybe he defeated a Jedi and took their lightsaber, to which the boy gave Anakin a funny look, before saying that no one can kill a Jedi. And Anakin remembered so long ago, when he said that same thing to Qui-Gon Jinn. Oh, how wrong he was. It was strange being on the other side of this conversation, but Anakin now had the boy talking. He said he lived in an orphanage for his whole life, and that outpost is where the children were supposed to go if there was ever an attack. Anakin realized this meant that others likely didn't make it, and he was bringing this boy back to a village that was likely devoid of anyone to take care of him. So Anakin had an idea. He asked the boy if he would like to come with him to Coruscant. He can get him into one of the best orphanages in the galaxy. The boy had only heard of Coruscant in stories, and so he excitedly said yes. Anakin finally asked for his name, and the boy said he never really had one, but he had a necklace when he was dropped off at the orphanage that had the letter J on it. Anakin thought about this for a second, then asked the boy if he would like to be called Jin, and the boy said that he liked that. Jin. Anakin was honoring his original master, Qui-Gon Jinn, with this name, and together he and Jin made it to the ship. Anakin took off just above the tree line, staying hidden from Separatist scanners, and soon they flew above the largely destroyed village as Jin looked out of the window, watching as he left his home, and Anakin would soon jump to hyperspace. Jin was in awe. He'd barely left the village in his young life, much less going to space. As the stars flew by in hyperspace, Jin began talking much more excitedly and much more rapidly, as he asked Anakin countless questions about the Jedi, Coruscant, lightsabers, fighting, and Anakin was more than happy to tell him all about the Jedi, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Yoda. Jin didn't believe that Anakin was telling the truth about Yoda being a small green Jedi, but he believed pretty much everything else. As the trip neared its end, Jin told Anakin that it was good to talk to someone who cares about him, and he gave Anakin a hug to thank him for coming to the forest to find him. Anakin felt a bit awkward, as finding Jin was a complete accident, but he told Jin he was happy to help. The two of them eventually descended into Coruscant, and Jin couldn't stop gasping in awe at every building as they flew through the city. And soon, Anakin landed his ship outside of a Coruscant orphanage he once volunteered at as a young Jedi with Obi-Wan. He knew it to be one of the best. He told Jin they were here, and Jin was looking at the floor sadly. He told Anakin that he doesn't want to go, then asked Anakin if he can just stay with him. Anakin stuttered. He wasn't expecting this, but he had to tell Jin that it wouldn't work. He was a Jedi fighting in a war. There was just no time. Jin looked like he was about to cry as he looked upon the new orphanage with a bunch of strangers, and Anakin did feel bad as he guided Jin to the droids outside of the building. Anakin said goodbye, and Jin gave him one final look before being guided inside. Anakin turned away, feeling much more sad, much more doubtful than he thought he would, but he had no choice. Anakin slowly limped back to his ship, and as he was about to enter, he heard droids yelling out behind him. Anakin turned as Jin ran right into him, telling Anakin he can't do it. Anakin smiled, waving the droids away, telling them it's fine. Anakin then looked Jin in the eyes and said maybe they can figure something out. Across Coruscant, inside of her apartment, Padme Amidala was preparing for a Senate meeting later that evening. As she was doing this, C-3PO alerted her that Anakin was here, and Padme excitedly ran out to the balcony to see Anakin and a boy? Anakin sort of silently shrugged as Jin was looking all around before seeing Padme and silently waving. Padme curiously waved back as Anakin came up and gave her a hug before telling Padme everything that has happened with Jin. Once it was over, Padme said it was extremely sweet of Anakin to take care of the boy. But now what? He's a Jedi, she's a senator. They don't have time to watch over a child, unfortunately. Anakin said he knows, and he sort of stuttered with his words. Padme asked what was going on, and Anakin said that maybe he doesn't need to be a Jedi, or at least not one that's fighting in the war. Anakin was sort of seeing the other side of things with this war. Most planets, most people in the galaxy had no stake in the fighting. Kids like Jin were being killed, lost, or orphaned every single day, and for what? Anakin said that maybe it's time to help push for peace in the war, and Padme was excited. Every time she and Anakin talked about pushing for peace in the past, Anakin couldn't listen, but maybe Jin was changing him. So Padme said this could work. If Anakin stays on Coruscant and uses his influence to push for peace, then they, along with the help of Padme's handmaidens, will have the time to watch Jin. So Anakin would officially introduce Jin to Padme. The 10-year-old boy reminded Padme of when she first met Anakin, and they were both so young. They would all have dinner together that night, and Jin wasn't exactly a fan of the elite Coruscant cuisine that Padme was given, so Anakin was able to get him some Andorian chicken fingers. Padme got along very well with Jin. She always secretly wanted to be a mother once this war was over, but now, with Jin here, and seeing how much he gravitated towards Anakin, Padme realized that perhaps she could be a mother to Jin starting now. It all went by so fast, but everything moved fast these days, and in the evening, Anakin would bring Jin down to the apartment, where Padme's handmaidens resided. They assured Anakin that Jin would be safe here, and Anakin was able to return to the Jedi Temple. Almost immediately upon entering, Obi-Wan found him, and he asked Anakin where he's been. He and Ahsoka have been worried ever since he failed to check in after his mission on Aquatina. In all honesty, Anakin forgot about mission protocol when he found Jin, and he apologized to Obi-Wan, then went and gave the mission report to the Council. He and the Commandos failed to find Dooku. Instead, they walked into a separatist trap. Windu shook his head. The Sith were always one step ahead of them. Anakin didn't mention Jin in his report, but Anakin soon told the Council he would like to take on a new mission of sorts. Anakin said that he thinks he can influence Palpatine to bring an end to this conflict. The war was dragging on with no end in sight, and Anakin was closer to the Chancellor than any other Jedi. The Council was truly surprised to hear this. Anakin was consistently willing to fight the toughest battles of the war, often going overboard with the fighting. But now he was willing to push for peace? Windu said this would be excellent, though he doubts Palpatine will ever allow the war to end, as long as Dooku and Grievous are out there. And so Anakin, knowing this was true, asked to step away from the battlefront for a while. He just isn't able to keep fighting. It's wearing him down. And Obi-Wan answered before anyone else could, saying that this is more than alright, and he personally dismissed Anakin. Anakin appreciated this, and he would leave the Council to go and find Ahsoka. Once with Ahsoka, it didn't take long for her to realize something was off, so she told Anakin she wouldn't shut up about it until Anakin told her what was going on. So Anakin would tell her. Then Anakin brought Ahsoka back to Padme's apartment so she could meet Jin. The two of them, of course, got along very well, as Ahsoka was often extremely good at interacting with children. As the night progressed, she asked Anakin if he was actually going to be a caretaker to Jin, and Anakin truly thought that he would be. He felt more purpose in rescuing Jin and being with him than he ever did fighting battle droids. And so from here, a week would go by where Anakin remained on Coruscant as the war went on around the galaxy. It wouldn't take long for Obi-Wan to come by and find out the real reason that Anakin took himself out of the fighting, and so Anakin would soon introduce Jin to Obi-Wan as well. Doing this basically told Obi-Wan and Ahsoka that Anakin and Padme were officially together, but Anakin didn't really care about that right now. Neither did Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. They both had an idea. He was happy. Padme seemed happy. Jin was happier than he'd ever been. The only person that had any real issues with this was Palpatine, as he needed Anakin in the war to push him further down the dark path. And about a week after Jin got to Coruscant, Anakin began his pursuit of peace as he visited Palpatine for the first time. Palpatine was telling Anakin that his presence in the war was great for the Republic, and losing him in battle could be the tipping point that allows the Separatists to gain an advantage. Anakin shook his head. He said that if the situation is that dire, perhaps they should push to end the war. Why shouldn't the Separatists just be allowed to live freely? Palpatine said he wishes it was that simple, but he begged Anakin to see that if they cede any control of the galaxy to Dooku and Grievous, then they will only push for more control. Palpatine told Anakin that he has seen the evils of the Separatists. Then he asked Anakin if he truly believes Dooku would accept peace. Anakin understood, but he still said it may be worth a try. Millions of innocent beings are dying every day for this war. And as they talked, Palpatine could sense something else on Anakin's mind, something new. So the Chancellor found a way to pry, saying he could tell something is off, and Anakin said that he found himself in the care of a child recently. Anakin trusted Palpatine enough to tell him this, and honestly, Anakin has been enjoying his time with Jin so much that he just loved telling people about him. When night came, Palpatine told Anakin that he will look into peaceful alternatives, and he did tell Anakin that he was very proud of him for being mature enough to step away from the war and take care of those he loves. Anakin thanked Palpatine for the time, and he flew away as Palpatine's warm, genuine smile turned into a twisted look of hatred. Palpatine wasn't going to just let some child get in the way of his grand plans. So that night in his office, Palpatine would go into the disguise of Darth Sidious, and he would contact one of the most trusted hunters in the galaxy, Cad Bane. He needed Bane to kill this child that Anakin was protecting, make it look like a separatist attack. Bane accepted the mission, and he quickly got to work. A few more nights would go by, as Jin was getting really accustomed to the new life. The guest room in Padme's apartment was where he was staying, though he ended up sleeping in the same room as Anakin and Padme on more than one occasion, and he had nightmares of the attack in his village almost every night. But one of these nights, Jin was determined to sleep in his own bed, and he was soon awoken in the middle of the night by what sounded like droids. Jin convinced himself it was from his dream, and he tried to go back to sleep, but a second later, 2 commando droids broke in through his window. Luckily, R2-D2 was hidden in here, and he lit up his bright lights, screaming for help. The droids were momentarily distracted, as Jin was able to roll underneath his bed, and as the droids were about to lift up the bed, Anakin ran in, cutting them up to pieces. He turned to look out the window, and Anakin saw a nearby speeder quickly turn and try to leave. So Anakin got to the window, reaching his hand out, grabbing the speeder and pulling it back towards him with the Force. He pulled the speeder out of traffic, and the engines slowly gave up, exploding in the air, allowing Anakin to pull the speeder much easier. The bounty hunter inside jumped out and tried to fly away on his rocket boots, but Anakin threw his saber through the air, and it sliced through the hunter's ankles. He began falling to the ground, so Anakin jumped out of the window, landing on the ground first, then catching Cad Bane before he hit the ground. Bane was grimacing in extreme pain from having his legs cut through, and Anakin demanded to know who hired him. Bane obviously wasn't going to talk, so Anakin reached his hand out and began probing Bane's mind. If this were being used as a Jedi trick, it probably would not have worked, but Anakin was diving into the dark side right now. Someone just tried to kill the child he was protecting, and he grabbed hold of Bane's mind, searching his memories, and soon, Anakin saw who hired him. It was Sidious, but for the first time, Anakin was able to see the body of Sidious and hear his voice echoing in Bane's mind. And with complete surprise, Anakin let go, but it was too late. Bane was gone. Anakin made him essentially lose his mind, and so Anakin dropped Bane outside of a bar, and he hurried to the Jedi Temple. He knew who Sidious was. Anakin would go on to tell the Council what he saw in Bane's mind, admitting he did touch the dark side to get this information, but he was positive on his theory. Palpatine is Sidious. The Council already had some suspicions of this, but they would waste no time from here. They would instruct Anakin to go be with the child during all of this. They knew Anakin was unstable, and Palpatine likely wanted him to use his darkness. Anakin agreed to this, so he went to be with Padme and Jin, while Yoda, Windu, Kit Fisto, Plo Koon, and Obi-Wan went to Palpatine's apartment. Anakin would wait anxiously with Padme and Jin in their home together for what seemed like hours until eventually a speeder came to the apartment. Anakin grabbed his lightsaber, moving to the balcony, but it was just Obi-Wan. With a relieved smile, he told Anakin he was right. Obi-Wan had cuts in his arm and a gash in his leg, but he said Palpatine was defeated. It ultimately cost a sacrifice from Kit Fisto and Plo Koon, but they defeated the Sith. This was amazing to hear, and Padme would attend a late emergency Senate meeting held by the Jedi, as Anakin stayed with their child, and he even told them stories of Plo and Kit Fisto to help honor their memories for defeating the Sith. With the news of Palpatine being a separatist spy and working with Dooku spreading through the galaxy, many Republic planets were worried about what would happen now that Dooku and Grievous were seemingly going to be let loose. But the separatist planets were also very off-put by what they heard. Their great leader, Dooku, was always working against them from the start. He only wanted power for himself, and this would spark rebellion across the CIS. Droid factories were targeted. Mechanics would learn to reprogram or repurpose the droids, essentially creating a civil war within the Civil War that would lead to the eventual end of Grievous and Dooku within just a few months, as the galaxy was able to come together to rebuild after seeing just how far the galaxy had fallen. They were able to unite against politicians like Dooku and Palpatine, and the rebuilding Republic would be much better for it with Mon Mothma in control. When the war officially ended, Anakin and Padme would leave Coruscant for good, along with leaving politics and the Jedi Order behind for a while. They wanted to give Jin a happy childhood in his final years as a child, and the three of them would form a genuine family. Though Anakin was only double the age of Jin, he was still like a father to him. Anakin would take Jin into the lakes of Naboo, teaching him to be an excellent swimmer, as he would meet the Gungans, and they would both become very friendly with the Gungans. It was honestly refreshing that Jin didn't have the Force, as it made Anakin feel normal. Padme would introduce Jin to her Naboo family, and they would be extremely welcoming, as Jin felt truly at home, and with a real family for the first time in his life. Uncle Obi-Wan would often stop by and share a meal with the Skywalker family, or watch Jin while Anakin and Padme went on a date. And if Obi-Wan wasn't available, it would be now Jedi Knight Ahsoka Tano that would stop by. She was like a big sister to Jin, and the Skywalker family was set up to be happy for years to come, as with Jin being the first official child, of Anakin and Padme, as they would legally adopt him as their own. And folks, that is where our story ends today. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I have some ideas for a part 2, not sure if it'll be done. As you guys know, I don't do many part 2s, but we'll see if this one gets done. Anyways, I wanted to really mirror, like, what if Anakin, this doesn't make sense, but like, what if he found himself? Of course, this child is Force sensitive, so it's just Anakin finding a child and just going from there. I thought it was a really fun approach. I hope you guys did enjoy. Just Anakin kind of getting what he always wanted in a happy family, though it just being super, super escalated, and him just kind of seeing the war for what it really is. You know, it's just innocent people, innocent planets, just being ripped apart for this civil war that's just a fight for, you know, between top politicians and the Jedi. So, hope you guys enjoyed the different perspective on this. Yeah, let me know what you thought. I hope to, well, I'll have another video out tomorrow. Maybe it'll be a part 2 of this, maybe it won't. I don't know. I've got some written and ready to go. But either way, appreciate you guys watching. Once again, lightsaber giveaway, go down below, comment giveaway, followed by your favorite lightsaber in Star Wars, and I'll see you in the next video.